The Infinite Channel, a comprehensive history and analysis of the streaming media revolution, the great unbundling and rebundling of culture, the transformation of television from a linear, scheduled, terrestrial broadcast into a packet-switched, on-demand global library represents one of the most profound shifts in media history. This review provides an exhaustive analysis of this evolution, tracing the lineage of streaming technology from the experimental multicast networks of the early 1990s to the algorithmic, vertically integrated entertainment empires of the 2020s. This is not merely a story of bandwidth and codecs. It is a chronicle of how the fundamental unit of media consumption shifted from the channel to the asset, and how the economic power base of Hollywood migrated from the cable bundle to the cloud. We examine the nascent seeds of digital delivery planted by academic researchers, the chaotic Wild West of the dial-up era defined by the browser wars, the logistical mastery of the DVD-by-mail transition, and the high-stakes streaming wars that have fragmented and subsequently reshaped the global entertainment landscape. Through this lens, we analyze the technical hurdles that once made video over the internet a physical impossibility, and the business innovations that turned it into a trillion-dollar reality.
The Pre-Cambrian era, multicast backbones and accidental pioneers, 1990 to 1995. Long before streaming entered the vernacular as a consumer activity, the theoretical and practical foundations of transmitting continuous media over a packet-switched network were being laid in the rarefied environments of academic and corporate research labs. In the early 1990s, the Internet was primarily a text-based medium, dominated by email, Usenet, and the nascent World Wide Web. The infrastructure was built for bursty traffic, sending a file, reading an email, not the continuous, time-sensitive flow of data required for audio and video. The primary technical constraint of the early Internet was bandwidth. Sending a video stream to a single user was taxing. Sending it to thousands simultaneously was impossible with standard unicast protocols, which require a separate stream for each recipient. To solve this, researchers developed the multicast backbone, or M-bone, in the early 1990s. The M-bone was a virtual network layered on top of the physical Internet. It utilized a tunneling protocol to encapsulate multicast packets inside standard unicast packets, allowing them to traverse routers that were not multicast-enabled. This architecture allowed a single stream of data to be replicated only at the branch points of the network tree, drastically reducing the bandwidth load on the sender. However, access was restricted. It required specialized hardware, high-end workstations, often running Unix, and a connection to one of the few nodes at major universities or research facilities like Xerox PARC, Palo Alto Research Center. History often favors the famous, but the true pioneers of live Internet streaming were a band of computer scientists and engineers. Severe Tire Damage was a garage rock band formed by employees of DEC, Xerox PARC, and Apple. Their proximity to the bleeding edge of networking technology placed them in a unique position to experiment. On June 24, 1993, the band performed live at Xerox PARC. This performance was broadcast over the M-bone, making it the first confirmed live musical performance to be streamed over the Internet. The audience was microscopic by modern standards, limited to fellow scientists and engineers at connected institutions in places like Australia and across the US, but the proof of concept was monumental. It demonstrated that the Internet could be a medium for synchronous communal experience, not just asynchronous information retrieval. The engineering effort, led by Ron Frederick and Steve Deering, required pushing the limits of existing compression and transmission protocols. If severe tire damage proved the technology worked, the Rolling Stones proved it mattered. On November 18, 1994, the band broadcast 20 minutes of their Voodoo Lounge concert from the Cotton Bowl in Dallas over the M-bone. This event is widely cited as the moment streaming caught the attention of the broader world. Approximately 50,000 people tuned in, a staggering number for 1994, representing a significant fraction of the total internet-connected population. The viewing experience was primitive, a tiny, grainy window with low frame rates and garbled audio. Mick Jagger famously welcomed the audience to the M-Bone, acknowledging the novelty of the medium. However, the event also highlighted the disruptive potential of the open internet. Because the M-Bone was a decentralized, non-commercial network, the Rolling Stones did not own the broadcast channel in the way a TV network owns a frequency. Seizing this opportunity, severe tire damage effectively opened for the Stones by broadcasting their own performance on the same multicast channel immediately before the Stones took the stage. This act of digital guerrilla marketing made them the unbilled opening act for one of the world's biggest bands, underscoring the democratizing and chaotic nature of the early web. It was a harbinger of the platform wars to come. On the internet, the gatekeepers were technological, not institutional.
The dial-up days, the codec wars, and the struggle for bandwidth. 1995 to 2002. As the internet transitioned from a research tool to a commercial frontier with the advent of the commercial web browser, the limitations of the M-Bone, which was never designed for commercial traffic, gave way to new proprietary solutions. This era was defined by the last mile problem, the copper telephone wires connecting homes to the internet. In the mid-90s, the average consumer accessed the internet via a dial-up modem with a maximum throughput of 28.8 kilobytes per second, or later 56 kilobytes per second. To visualize this constraint, a standard CD-quality audio file requires about 1,411 kilobytes per second. A standard definition video requires vastly more. Streaming video over a 28.8K modem was akin to trying to drain a swimming pool through a drinking straw. The solution was aggressive, lossy compression. Algorithms' codecs were designed to throw away vast amounts of data, color information, high-frequency audio, frame details, to fit the stream into the narrow pipe. The result was the defining aesthetic of 90s streaming, the postage stamp video. Videos were typically 160 by 120 pixels, blurry, pixelated, and ran at varying frame rates that made movement look like a slideshow. The company that defined this era was Progressive Networks, later Real Networks. Founded by Rob Glazer, an ex-Microsoft executive, the company launched Real Audio 1.0 in April 1995. Before Real Audio, listening to a sound clip required downloading the entire file, which could take longer than the clip itself. Real Audio introduced the concept of streaming to the consumer market. The file played as it arrived. Real Networks quickly expanded into video with Real Video and the ubiquitous Real Player. For a brief window in the late 90s, Real Player was installed on virtually every internet-connected PC. It was the gateway to the first internet radio stations, over 1,000 by 1997, and early news clips. However, the user experience was often frustrating. The buffering message became the defining symbol of the era. The player would pause playback to fill a data buffer, ensuring that brief network interruptions wouldn't stop the audio-video. On unstable dial-up connections, this could happen every few seconds. Recognizing that multimedia was the future of computing, Microsoft entered the fray aggressively. Initially developing a video server technology codenamed Tiger in 1993, Microsoft eventually launched NetShow, which evolved into Windows Media Player. This sparked a fierce codec war. Real Networks had the better technology initially, but Microsoft had the leverage of the operating system. By bundling Windows Media Player with Windows 98 and subsequent OS releases, Microsoft ensured its player was ubiquitous. This forced content creators into a difficult position.
encode their content in realmedia.rm for the early adopters or windowsmedia.wmv for the mass market. Often, websites had to host both, leading to the familiar Choose Your Player links on early websites. Simultaneously, Apple maintained a presence with QuickTime.mov, popular in the creative industries and for movie trailers. Notably, the Star Wars Episode 1 trailer was a major driver of QuickTime downloads. This fragmentation meant the user's desktop was often cluttered with 3 or 4 different media players, each requiring constant updates and fighting for file associations. While software companies fought over formats, entrepreneurs explored business models. The most high-profile attempt was Broadcast.com, founded as AudioNet in 1995. Founders Todd Wagner and Mark Cuban recognized that while video was hard, live audio was feasible over dial-up. They began aggregating radio streams, sports broadcasts, and corporate events. Broadcast.com became a darling of the dot-com bubble. Its value proposition was global reach. A Dallas sports fan could listen to a local game while in Tokyo. In 1999, at the height of the market frenzy, Yahoo acquired Broadcast.com for $5.7 billion in stock. This acquisition is historically significant, not for its success, but for its failure. The infrastructure costs of streaming were linear. Every new listener cost money and bandwidth, while ad revenue was difficult to scale on low-fidelity streams. Yahoo eventually shut the service down in 2002. It was a classic case of being too early. The business model was sound, as proved by Spotify and YouTube decades later, but the infrastructure and adoption curve were not ready. An often overlooked pioneer in this period was Xing Technology. Founded in 1989, Xing developed Streamworks, a platform that supported both audio and video using MPEG standards. Xing's technology was technically impressive, often offering better quality than real video in controlled environments. In 1997, Real Networks, then Progressive Networks, leveraged Xing's tech via partnerships before eventually acquiring the company in 1999 to consolidate their hold on the market. This consolidation was typical of the era, larger players buying up innovative tech stacks to win the standards war. The bridge to digital. The DVD by mail revolution, 1997 to 2007. While the engineers battled over bit rates, a logistics revolution was occurring in physical media that would lay the groundwork for the modern subscription model. In 1997, Mark Randolph and Reed Hastings founded Netflix in Scotts Valley, California. Netflix began as a pay-per-rental service, a direct competitor to the local video store, but with the convenience of mail delivery. The DVD format, launched in the U.S. in 1997, was crucial to this model. Unlike VHS tapes, which were bulky and fragile, DVDs were light, durable, and cheap to mail. The true breakthrough came in 1999 with the introduction of the subscription model, a flat monthly fee for unlimited rentals with a cap on how many could be held at once, no due dates, and no late fees. This model fundamentally altered consumer psychology. It removed the pain of payment from the act of watching a movie. Users were encouraged to build a queue, a list of future desires, which Netflix would fulfill automatically. This created a continuous, always-on relationship with the content provider, a direct precursor to the infinite scroll of a streaming library. The incumbent, Blockbuster Video, failed to respond effectively. In 2000, Netflix leadership offered to sell the company to Blockbuster for $50 million. Blockbuster declined, viewing the logistics of mail delivery as niche compared to their thousands of retail locations. This is a textbook example of the innovator's dilemma. Blockbuster was focused on maximizing the profits of its existing model, which relied heavily on late fees, a major consumer irritant, and could not justify investing in a lower-margin, unproven competitor. By 2003, Netflix hit 1 million subscribers. By 2006, it was profitable and growing exponentially. They built a massive distribution network of sorting centers across the U.S., allowing for one-day delivery to the majority of the population. This physical network acted as a buffer while broadband speeds caught up to the requirements of digital video. A critical component of Netflix's DVD success was its recommendation engine, Cinematch. In a physical store, shelf space is limited, and demand is concentrated on new releases. In a centralized warehouse model, inventory is vast. Netflix used Cinematch to drive demand toward its long tail, older movies, independent films, and documentaries that were cheap to acquire and readily available. This not only improved customer satisfaction by surfacing relevant niche content, but also smoothed out inventory utilization. This data-first approach to content curation would become the defining characteristic of their streaming platform years later. During this period, Amazon was also experimenting. In 2006, they launched Amazon Unbox, a video download service. Unlike streaming, this required users to download the full file to their PC or a TiVo box. The service was cumbersome, branding was confusing, the Unbox name was abstract, and download times were long. It would take several rebrandings to Amazon Video on Demand in 2008 and then Amazon Instant Video before Amazon found the right formula. This highlighted that digital delivery wasn't enough. It had to be instant to truly compete with the convenience of a disk. The infrastructure revolution, solving the technical hurdles. Technical deep dive. The transition from the tiny buffering videos of the late 90s to the HD streams of 2010 was not magical. It was the result of massive investments in infrastructure and the development of new protocols. The Internet is not a single cloud. It is a network of networks. Sending a video file from a server in California to a user in London involves passing through dozens of routers, crossing undersea cables, and traversing various ISP networks. Each hop introduces latency and the potential for packet loss. To solve this, companies like Akamai, founded in 1998 out of MIT, developed Content Delivery Networks, CDNs. A CDN is a distributed network of servers placed geographically close to users at the edge of the Internet. When a user in London requests a video, the CDN redirects them to a server in London rather than California. Akamai grew from 3,000 servers in 1999 to over 200,000 by 2016. This massive scaling was essential for video. Without CDNs, the Internet's backbone would have collapsed under the weight of video traffic. Netflix later took this a step further with Open Connect, building their own CDN appliances and giving them directly to ISPs to install in their data centers, effectively localizing traffic to the user's neighborhood. Perhaps the most critical software innovation was adaptive bitrate streaming, ABR. In the real player days, a stream was a single file at a fixed bitrate, say 500 kilobits per second. If the user's bandwidth dropped to 400 kilobits per second, the buffer emptied and playback stopped. ABR changed the paradigm. Instead of one file, the video is encoded into multiple variants at different bit rates and resolutions, like low, medium, high, and HD. These variants are chopped into small segments, typically 2 to 10 seconds long. When a user streams, the video player constantly monitors the available bandwidth and CPU capacity. If bandwidth is high, it requests the next segment from the high-quality bucket. If the network congests, the player seamlessly switches to the low-quality bucket for the next segment. This eliminates buffering stops. Instead, the image becomes slightly blurrier for a few seconds, then sharpens again when the network clears. Microsoft pioneered this with smooth streaming, notably used for the 2008 Beijing Olympics. followed by Apple's HTTP live streaming, HLS, in 2009, and the industry standard MPEG- dynamic adaptive streaming over HTTP. This technology is what makes modern streaming feel like broadcast quality and reliable. For a decade, streaming relied on browser plugins like Adobe Flash and Microsoft Silverlight to handle video decoding and digital rights management, DRM. These plugins were resource-heavy, insecure, and required constant manual updates by the user. Apple's refusal to support Flash on the iPhone 2007 and iPad 2010 signaled the beginning of the end for plugins. Steve Jobs argued the Flash was a battery hog and a security risk. The industry gradually moved toward HTML5, the new standard for the web, which included native support for video tags. Netflix began migrating from Silverlight to HTML5 in 2013, a move that drastically improved battery life on laptops and enabled streaming on a wider range of devices, like Chromebooks. Adobe officially killed Flash in 2020, closing the chapter on the plugin era.
The pivot. Streaming goes mainstream. 2007 to 2012. By 2007, broadband adoption in the U.S. had reached approximately 50%, surpassing dial-up. The pipe was finally big enough. On January 16, 2007, Netflix launched Watch Now. It was a quiet revolution. Initially, it was a free value add for DVD subscribers, offering about 1,000 titles, mostly older movies, for streaming on PCs. It was not a standalone service. The limitations were severe. It only worked on Windows and Internet Explorer. Yet the psychology was powerful. The gap between wanting and watching collapsed from 24 hours, mail delivery, to seconds. Netflix quickly removed limits on streaming hours, encouraging users to experiment with the format. To make streaming a viable alternative to cable, Netflix needed premium, recognizable content. In 2008, they struck a deal with Starz, a premium cable channel. For a reported $25 to $30 million, Netflix gained access to 2,500 movies in the Starz library, including hits from Sony and Disney, like Spider-Man 3 and Ratatouille. Starz executives viewed this as found money for digital rights they weren't using. They did not see Netflix as a competitor. In hindsight, this is viewed as a catastrophic strategic error, often called the dumbest deal in Hollywood history by analysts. It gave Netflix a library of blockbusters for pennies on the dollar, legitimizing the service and driving massive subscriber growth. By the time the deal expired in 2012, Netflix had grown large enough to bid for content directly, no longer needing Starz as an intermediary. Threatened by the rise of piracy and the disruption of the cable model, NBC Universal and News Corp, Fox, launched Hulu in March 2008, beta in 2007. Unlike Netflix's movie focus, Hulu focused on catch-up TV, streaming episodes of current shows the day after they aired. Funded by Providence Equity Partners, Hulu was an ad-supported model, attempting to transfer the broadcast economics to the web. Disney joined the consortium in 2009. While initially successful, the ownership structure, rival networks trying to collaborate, often hampered its agility, a dynamic ironically predicted by early detractors who dubbed the project Clown Co. Netflix understood that for streaming to replace TV, it had to be on the TV. In 2008, they spun off their internal hardware division into a separate company, Roku. The Roku Player was the first affordable device dedicated to getting Netflix onto the living room screen. This was followed by integrations into Xbox 360, PS3, and eventually smart TVs. This ubiquity, Netflix everywhere, was a key strategic pillar that separated them from competitors who remained locked to PCs. The content revolution, originals, binging, and global expansion, 2013 to 2018. By 2011,
studios began to wake up to the threat Netflix posed. Licensing fees skyrocketed. Netflix realized that to survive, it needed to own its content. In 2011, Netflix outbid HBO for the rights to House of Cards. They committed to 2 full seasons upfront, $100 million, without seeing a pilot. This decision was driven by data. Netflix analyzed its 33 million subscribers and found a significant intersection of users who watched the original BBC House of Cards, users who loved David Fincher movies like The Social Network, and users who watched Kevin Spacey films. The algorithm predicted success. When the show premiered on February 1, 2013, it was a critical and commercial smash. It proved that a streaming service could produce prestige TV on par with HBO. With House of Cards, Netflix made the radical decision to release all 13 episodes at once. This shattered the weekly release model that had defined television since its inception. This birthed binge-watching as a mainstream behavior. While the term appeared as early as 2003, it exploded in usage in 2013, becoming the Collins Word of the Year in 2015. Psychologically, binge-watching taps into the brain's reward centers. The autoplay feature reduces the friction of decision-making, while the narrative cliffhangers create a dopamine loop that encourages just one more episode. Studies have linked this behavior to both enjoyment, immersion, transportation into the story, and negative outcomes like sleep loss and increased anxiety. Cultural conversation shifted from the water cooler moment discussing last night's episode to spoiler avoidance. Viewing became personalized and asynchronous rather than communal and synchronous. On January 6, 2016, Reed Hastings announced at CES that Netflix had switched on its service in 130 additional countries, effectively covering the entire globe, excluding China, Crimea, North Korea, and Syria. This move was necessitated by the slowing growth in the U.S. market. Global expansion allowed Netflix to amortize the massive cost of original content across a worldwide subscriber base. A show like Stranger Things could be paid for by subscribers in France, Brazil, and Japan simultaneously. This pushed Netflix to invest in local language originals like Dark in Germany and Sacred Games in India, further differentiating it from US-centric competitors. While Netflix needed streaming to be profitable, Amazon used it as a perk. By bundling Prime Video with the Prime shipping membership, Amazon made the service feel free. This allowed them to capture casual viewers who wouldn't pay for a standalone service. Amazon invested heavily in originals like Transparent and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, using awards prestige to drive Prime subscriptions, which in turn drove e-commerce sales, a flywheel effect that traditional media companies could not replicate.
The Streaming Wars, Fragmentation and Reclamation, 2019 to 2021. As the 2010s ended, the major media conglomerates, Disney, Warner Bros., NBC Universal, decided to stop arming their enemy. They began reclaiming their content rights to launch their own platforms, initiating the Streaming Wars. The most visible casualty of this war was Netflix's library. The Office, Netflix's most watched show, was reclaimed by NBC for its Peacock service. Friends moved to HBO Max. This forced a fragmentation of the user experience. To maintain the same library they had in 2015, a consumer in 2020 needed subscriptions to Netflix, Disney+, Hulu, HBO Max, and Peacock. Disney launched Disney Plus on November 12, 2019. It was a massive success, signing up 10 million users on day one. Disney Plus leveraged its distinct brand tiles, Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, Disney, and Nat Geo, to offer a clear value proposition. Unlike Netflix, Disney Plus adopted a weekly release schedule for hits like The Mandalorian. This strategy was designed to reduce churn. A user couldn't sign up, binge the season in a weekend, and cancel. They had to stay subscribed for months. This highlighted the strategic divergence in the industry regarding how best to monetize attention. Warner Media's entry, HBO Max, now Max, had a turbulent birth in May 2020 due to branding confusion. However, the COVID-19 pandemic forced a radical experiment. With theaters closed, Warner Bros. Announced Project Popcorn, releasing their entire 2021 film slate, including Dune and The Matrix Resurrections, on HBO Max the same day they hit theaters. This move drove subscriber growth, but enraged the creative community. Directors like Nolan and Villeneuve publicly blasted the studio, fearing the death of the cinematic experience. While it boosted HBO Max's numbers, it came at the cost of box office revenue and talent relationships, illustrating the high stakes of the pivot to digital.
Maturity, saturation, ads, and the future. 2022, present. By 2022, the era of unbridled growth ended. The market reached saturation, and subscription fatigue set in. Data from 2024 shows that churn rates have increased, with 31% of users canceling a service in the past year. The average household willingness to pay for multiple services hit a ceiling. Consumers began service hopping, subscribing for a month to watch a specific show and then canceling. To combat this, the industry pivoted back to the model it tried to kill: advertising. In late 2022, both Netflix and Disney Plus launched ad-supported tiers. Priced lower, as in $6.99 for Netflix, these tiers attracted price-sensitive customers. Crucially, these tiers proved more profitable per user than the ad-free plans. The combination of subscription revenue plus ad revenue, ARPU, exceeded the revenue of a standard subscription. This marked the full maturation of the business model. Streaming is no longer a disruptor. It is the new television, complete with commercials. We are now entering the phase of rebundling. Telecom providers and tech giants are aggregating services, as in the Disney bundle of Disney+, Hulu, and ESPN+. The fragmented landscape is slowly coalescing back into a cable-like package, managed by a few gatekeepers. The cycle of unbundling and rebundling is complete. The current streaming battleground, a late 2025 snapshot. As the global media and entertainment industry approaches the close of 2025, the streaming wars, a colloquialism that defined the aggressive, capital-intensive pursuit of subscriber scale from 2019 to 2024, has irrevocably shifted phases. The industry has transitioned from an era of unchecked expansionism to one of rigorous rationalization, profitability, and defensive consolidation. The growth at all costs mandate has been replaced by a margin at all costs discipline, enforced by a Wall Street consensus that no longer rewards pure subscriber additions without accompanying free cash flow. The next part of this review provides an exhaustive analysis of the streaming landscape as of late 2025. It synthesizes data from quarterly earnings, third-party viewership analytics, and strategic corporate disclosures to construct a comprehensive picture of a sector in flux. The dominant theme of 2025 is the tension between price elasticity and consumer fatigue. While the global streaming market is projected to surpass 1.1 billion subscribers, the internal dynamics of the domestic U.S. market reveal deep fissures. Churn rates have reached historic highs, driven by a phenomenon known as Streamflation, compelling platforms to pivot toward bundling, ad-supported tiers, and appointment viewing events to reduce voluntary churn. We observe a stark bifurcation in the competitive landscape. The scaled titans, Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, and Disney Plus, are entrenching their dominance through diversified revenue ecosystems that include gaming,
commerce, and experience. Conversely, the challengers, Warner Bros. Discovery, Paramount Global, and Peacock, are actively engaged in existential maneuvering, ranging from mergers and acquisitions to strategic spin-offs of legacy assets. The rapid ascent of free ad-supported TV or FAST services like Tubi and Pluto TV represents a critical release valve for the price-sensitive consumer, fundamentally reshaping the digital advertising economy.
The macroeconomic environment, streamflation, and audience fatigue. By late 2025, the economic reality for the digital consumer has hardened significantly. Inflationary pressures on household discretionary spending have collided with aggressive pricing strategies from media conglomerates. The phenomenon of streamflation is not merely anecdotal, it is a measurable economic trend. Subscription prices across the major platforms have surged by approximately 25% over the past year alone, with platforms raising rates by an average of 9% annually. This aggressive pricing power is being tested against a backdrop of consumer caution. The average U.S. household now spends approximately $46 per month on streaming services, maintaining subscriptions to roughly 2.9 platforms. However, other data suggests that when accounting for ad-supported services and bundles, the average stack of subscriptions hovers around 4 per household. This spending level is nearing a psychological ceiling. Deloitte's consumer research indicates that 47% of consumers believe they pay too much for streaming services, and 41% feel the content available is not worth the price, a sentiment that has intensified by 5 percentage points compared to 2024. This friction is compounded by broader economic anxieties. As the 2025 holiday season approaches, consumer sentiment remains fragile. PwC reports that 84% of consumers expect to cut back on spending over the next 6 months, citing rising prices and the cost of living. In this environment, a monthly recurring subscription is often the first discretionary expense to be audited by the household CFO. The result is a consumer base that is increasingly transactional, treating streaming services not as utility bills, but as on-demand rentals. The direct consequence of these economic pressures is a surge in churn rates, which have become the defining metric of failure or success in 2025. In the fiercely competitive U.S. market, the average monthly churn rate has climbed to 5.5%, a dramatic increase from the roughly 2% benchmark observed in 2019. The stability that once characterized the SVOD, subscription video on demand model, has evaporated for all but the most essential services. Data reveals that 39% of consumers have canceled at least one paid SVOD service in the last 6 months. This behavior is most pronounced among younger demographics who view content consumption differently than their predecessors. For Gen Z and millennials, churn rates exceed 50%, driven by a subscribe, binge, cancel mentality. These users, categorized as serial churners, now represent 23% of the U.S. streaming audience. They migrate between platforms based on specific content availability, signing up for House of the Dragon on Max, canceling the next month to watch the NFL on Peacock, and then switching to Apple TV Plus for a specific drama. This volatility has forced a strategic pivot. Platforms can no longer rely on library depth alone to retain users. They must deploy retention hooks, mechanisms that create friction to cancel. These hooks include bundling, creating economic incentives to stay, daily habit-forming content, news, sports, games, and annual plan discounts. The rise of bundling, exemplified by Comcast StreamSaver and the Disney Plus Hulu integration, is a direct response to this churn epidemic. By locking consumers into multi-service ecosystems, media companies hope to artificially lower churn rates that their content slates alone can no longer suppress. As consumers recoil from high prices, they are increasingly embracing ad-supported tiers. This shift has transformed the revenue composition of the streaming industry. By late 2025, the digital advertising market has rebounded, with ad revenue climbing to $259 billion in 2024, a 15% year-over-year increase. The consumer trade-off is clear: time and attention in exchange for lower monthly fees. Disney Plus reports that nearly 40% of its subscribers in the US and Canada are expected to choose the ad-supported tier by 2025, a massive jump from just 3% in 2022. Similarly, Netflix has seen 45% of its US households adopt the ad tier. This migration is not a sign of weakness for the platforms. On the contrary, average revenue per user on ad-supported tiers often exceeds that of ad-free plans due to the robust demand for connected TV inventory.
The Titans: Performance and Strategy Analysis. The market has bifurcated into a tiered hierarchy. At the top are the global utilities, Netflix, Amazon, and Disney, which have achieved the scale necessary to operate profitable, diversified ecosystems. Below them are the challengers, Warner Bros. Discovery, Paramount, and Peacock, which are fighting for survival, scale, or exponential. Netflix? In Q3 2025, the company reported revenue of $11.51 billion, a 17% year-over-year increase, driven by a global paid subscriber base of approximately 301.6 million. Unlike its legacy media peers, Netflix has achieved significant operating leverage. It posted an operating margin of 28.2% in Q3 2025, with expectations to hit 29% for the full year. Free cash flow is robust, projected at approximately $9 billion for 2025. This financial strength allows Netflix to self-fund its massive content budget without relying on expensive debt, a critical advantage in a high-interest rate environment. The company's focus has shifted from pure subscriber growth to revenue optimization, evidenced by its cessation of reporting quarterly subscriber numbers in favor of revenue metrics, although analysts continue to track the former closely. The pivot to advertising has been the most significant strategic success for Netflix in 2025. Initially viewed with skepticism, the ad tier has become a primary driver of subscriber acquisition and revenue growth. By late 2025, 45% of Netflix US households are on the ad-supported tier, up from 34% a year prior. Management has signaled that ad revenue will double in 2025, becoming a critical growth engine as subscriber acquisition in mature markets like North America saturates. This tier allows Netflix to capture price-sensitive consumers who might otherwise churn, while monetizing them at a rate that often exceeds the basic ad-free plan. To combat churn, Netflix is eventizing its platform. Its foray into live sports, specifically the two exclusive NFL Christmas Day games, Chiefs vs. Steelers and Ravens vs. Texans, is a tactical masterstroke. By securing these games, Netflix guarantees massive engagement during Q4, a period traditionally vulnerable to churn. Furthermore, Netflix has expanded into mobile gaming, achieving over 210 million lifetime downloads by late 2025. Games like GTA San Andreas act as retention tools, increasing the value proposition of the subscription without increasing the monthly price. Amazon Prime Video has solidified its position as a top-tier competitor, holding 22% of the US market share and boasting a user base of 210 million globally. Unlike Netflix, Prime Video's primary function is to reduce churn for the broader Amazon Prime membership, but in 2025, it has become a formidable revenue generator in its own right. Amazon's introduction of default ads on Prime Video has instantly created one of the largest ad-supported streaming audiences in the world. Ad revenue from Prime Video is forecast to reach $806 million in 2025 alone, with the ad-supported tier reaching over 130 million US consumers monthly. The true innovation, however, lies in T-commerce. Amazon has expanded its Shop the Show feature to over 1,300 titles, allowing users to browse and purchase products seen on screen via their mobile devices or directly through the TV interface. New ad formats, such as interactive pause ads and shoppable carousels, leverage Amazon's retail dominance to close the loop between viewing and purchasing. Amazon has aggressively pursued live sports rights to drive appointment viewing. The landmark 11-year deal with the NBA, beginning in the 2025-26 season, creates a floor for Prime Video usage. By securing exclusive rights to 66 regular season games and the high-stakes NBA Cup, Amazon ensures that sports fans must maintain their Prime membership year-round. For Disney, 2025 has been defined by the successful execution of CEO Bob Iger's profitability plan. The direct-to-consumer segment, once a source of billion-dollar losses, has achieved full-year profitability, generating $1.3 billion in operating income for FY 2025. Disney Plus core subscriptions reached 131.6 million, while the combined Disney Plus Hulu bundle continues to act as a powerful churn reduction tool. The integration of Hulu content into the Disney Plus app tile has increased engagement and time spent, critical metrics for ad inventory value. However, the company faced headwinds in India, Disney Plus Hotstar, due to the Star India transaction and the loss of key cricket rights, which caused a significant drop in the subscriber base there. This shedding of low ARPU subscribers in India has conversely helped improve the overall global ARPU. Looking to the future, Disney is building an engagement engine linked to its $1.5 billion investment in Epic Games. This initiative aims to create a persistent universe connected to Fortnite, allowing users to interact with Disney IP in a gamified environment. This strategy targets Gen Alpha, for whom the lines between video consumption and gaming are increasingly blurred. Warner Bros. Discovery, WBD, finds itself in a precarious yet pivotal position in late 2025. While its streaming service, Max, is profitable, reporting $2.5 billion in adjusted EBITDA in Q3 2025 and 128 million global subscribers, the company's massive debt load and declining linear TV assets have made it a prime acquisition target. As of November 2025, WBD is the subject of intense M&A speculation, fielding acquisition bids from three major suitors: Paramount Skydance, Comcast, and Netflix. Paramount Skydance, backed by the Ellison family and fresh off its own merger, is pursuing the entire WBD portfolio. The strategic logic is to combine Max with Paramount Plus and CBS with CNN/TNT to create a legacy media giant capable of competing with big tech. Comcast and Netflix are reportedly interested only in the crown jewels, the Warner Bros. Film and TV studio, and the HBO Max streaming assets. They have little interest in the declining linear networks, CNN/TNT/TBS, viewing them as a drag on growth. To facilitate a sale or maximize value, WBD has discussed a plan to split into two separate public companies, Studios Plus Streaming and Linear Networks. This potential financial engineering highlights the toxic nature of cable assets in 2025. They generate cash, but destroy valuation multiples. Peacock has plateaued in terms of pure scale compared to Netflix, hovering around 41 million paid subscribers throughout mid-2025. However, the service has significantly improved its economics, narrowing its Q3 2025 loss to $217 million, roughly half the loss from the prior year. In a historic restructuring, Comcast announced the spin-off of its cable networks, MSNBC, CNBC, USA, E, and Sci-Fi, into a new public company named Versant. Crucially, Peacock, the NBC broadcast network, and Bravo will remain with Comcast NBC Universal. This signals that Comcast views Peacock as integral to its core future, anchored by live sports, NFL, Olympics, and premium NBC content, while casting off the low-growth cable assets to Versant. Acknowledging that Peacock may not be a standalone must-have for all consumers, Comcast launched StreamSaver, a bundle combining Peacock, Netflix, and Apple TV Plus for broadband customers. This aggregation strategy provides consumers with a significant discount, approximately 30%, and positions Peacock as a key component of a larger utility bundle. Following the completion of the merger with Skydance Media in August 2025, Paramount Global has entered a new chapter as Paramount Skydance. The new leadership, led by David Ellison, is focused on modernizing the legacy studio's technology and achieving profitability. Paramount Plus reached 79.1 million subscribers in Q3 2025, with streaming revenue growing 17% to $2.17 billion. The company expects its DTC business to be profitable for the full year 2025. Strategy: the new leadership is aggressively pursuing scale, evidenced by their bid for Warner Bros. Discovery. The logic is existential. In a market dominated by trillion-dollar tech giants, mid-sized media companies lack the leverage to survive.
The rise of FAST, the safety valve. As subscription fatigue sets in, free ad-supported streaming TV, FAST, has emerged not just as a cheaper alternative, but as a dominant format in the American living room. By mid-2025, streaming represented nearly 45% of total TV usage, with FAST services like Tubi, Pluto TV, and the Roku channel combining for a significant share of that viewership. These platforms have effectively recreated the cable television experience, linear, curated, and free for the digital age. Tubi has been the breakout star of the FAST sector. By mid-2025, it exceeded 100 million monthly active users and surpassed 1 billion total viewing hours in May alone. Its success lies in its vast, eclectic library and a rabbit-hole recommendation algorithm that keeps viewers engaged without the pressure of prestige TV. Tubi currently commands 2.2% of total TV viewing minutes in the U.S. With over 80 million MAUs, Pluto TV continues to be a revenue powerhouse for Paramount. It acts as a funnel for the paid Paramount Plus service and leverages its linear-style interface to provide a leaning-back experience that mimics traditional broadcast TV. It remains a key component of Paramount's ad sales strategy. Roku's owned and operated channel has become a top-tier app, ranking as the #2 app on the Roku platform by engagement. It reaches roughly 120 million people in U.S. households, effectively acting as a major broadcast network embedded within the operating system. FAST is no longer merely a dumping ground for failed content. It is a primary destination for library monetization. Global FAST revenue is projected to hit $17 billion by 2029, with significant ad spend migrating from linear TV. A defining trend in this space is the single IP channel. Viewers can now tune into channels dedicated entirely to Top Gear, Baywatch, or Project Runway on platforms like Pluto TV. This caters to the consumer desire for comfort viewing, the psychological safety of watching known, low-stakes content. For media companies, this is essential for monetizing deep libraries that no longer drive subscription acquisitions on premium services, but can still generate significant ad revenue. The peak TV era of infinite originals has ended. In 2025, the strategy has shifted from volume to value and efficiency. The industry has recognized that while originals drive acquisition, deep libraries drive retention. Data from late 2025 indicates a significant shift in viewing habits. Viewership of original content dropped from 56% in late 2022 to 40% in 2024, a trend that has solidified in 2025. Shows like Grey's Anatomy on Netflix generate more viewer hours than massive originals like Stranger Things due to the sheer volume of episodes and rewatchability. This has led to a strategic pivot among the major studios.
NBC Universal and Disney, which briefly hoarded their content for their own platforms, Peacock and Disney+, have returned to licensing. WBD and NBCU are increasingly selling non-core titles to Netflix to generate high-margin cash flow. This arms dealer approach acknowledges the Netflix effect. Placing a show on Netflix can revitalize the IP, driving downstream revenue for the IP owner. Following the 2023 Writers Guild strike, the industry contracted significantly. In 2025, media companies have shifted focus to quality over quantity. While total content spend remains high, $126 billion among top companies, the rate of growth is muted. The focus is now on franchises with built-in fan bases and broad appeal, rather than niche prestige dramas with limited rewatchable value. The strike's long-term impact is visible in the 2025 slates, which rely heavily on safer bets, unscripted content, and international acquisitions to fill gaps.
The sports frontier, the last bastion of live. Live sports remains the only content category capable of generating massive, simultaneous audiences, appointment viewing, making it the critical differentiator for retention and ad revenue in 2025. By late 2025, the sports landscape has been carved up among streamers, forcing fans to navigate a fragmented map of rights. NFL. Netflix has entered the arena with 2 exclusive Christmas Day games, Chiefs vs. Steelers and Ravens vs. Texans in 2025, expecting viewership of 24 million per game. This move is purely strategic. It reduces holiday churn and provides massive inventory for its growing ad tier. Amazon continues with Thursday Night Football and a Black Friday game. Peacock holds exclusive rights to a Week 17 Saturday game. NBA. The new 11-year NBA media rights deal, starting 2025-26, splits games between Disney, ABC, ESPN, NBC, Peacock, and Amazon Prime Video. Amazon will stream 66 regular season games and the NBA Cup, while Peacock gets a significant slate of national games. This deal creates a retention floor for Prime Video and Peacock. Fans must subscribe to watch their teams, reducing the likelihood of churn and return behavior during the season. Digital consumption of sports is skyrocketing. By 2025, over 90 million U.S. viewers stream sports monthly, a steep rise from 57 million in 2021. The first month of the 2025 NBA season saw a 15-year high in opening viewership, driven by the novelty and accessibility of the new streaming partners. This confirms that the transition of sports from linear to digital is not just inevitable, but accelerating. The industry's early experiments with choose-your-own-adventure formats like Bandersnatch have largely failed and been deprecated. Netflix removed most interactive specials in late 2025, signaling the end of that specific format. The future of interactivity is not in branching narrative video, but in gaming and commerce. Netflix has pivoted to mobile gaming, achieving over 210 million lifetime downloads by late 2025. Games like GTA San Andreas drive massive engagement, serving as value ad features that increase time spent in the app.
Disney's $1.5 billion stake in Epic Games is manifesting in late 2025 as a persistent universe connected to Fortnite, allowing users to interact with Disney IP. This is a play for the next generation of consumers, Gen Alpha, who value agency over passive consumption.
Google is testing Playables, offering lightweight games directly within the YouTube app, blurring the lines between video and gaming platforms. Amazon is leading the integration of commerce and content, capitalizing on its unique position as both a retailer and a broadcaster. Prime Video has expanded this feature to over 1,300 titles, allowing users to browse products seen on screen via their mobile devices, or second screen, or directly on the TV.
International battlegrounds and niche players.
While the U.S. market saturates, the battle for the next billion users continues in key international regions where local nuances dictate strategy. In Southeast Asia, the battle is between global giants and regional specialists. Netflix leads with 12.8 million subscribers, but Vayu is a fierce competitor with 9.9 million subs, leveraging its dominance in Korean content and local productions. IQEY is also expanding rapidly. The market here is defined by mobile-first consumption and freemium models, requiring different pricing strategies than the West. The Indian market has been reshaped by the merger of Disney's Star India assets with Reliance Industries, Jio. This created a media behemoth. However, Disney Plus Hotstar initially saw subscriber losses as it shed low-value users following the loss of IPL cricket rights. The new entity is focused on dominating the ad market and leveraging cricket to drive massive scale. In Africa, Showmax, a joint venture between MultiChoice and Comcast, is putting up a strong fight against Netflix. By leveraging Comcast's Peacock technology stack and investing heavily in local content and English Premier League mobile rights, Showmax has surpassed Netflix in subscriber numbers in key markets like South Africa. This proves that a hyper-local strategy combined with premium sports can defeat global scale in specific territories. Apple TV Plus continues to operate as a premium boutique rather than a mass-market utility. It focuses on high-budget, star-driven originals, Severance, The Morning Show, and has resisted acquiring a deep library of licensed content. However, rumors persist of a 2025 hardware refresh for the Apple TV device and potential aggressive bundling moves to drive services revenue. Its partnership with Amazon to offer Apple TV Plus as an add-on channel on Prime Video signals a willingness to broaden distribution. Consolidation and M&A, the Great Reshuffling. 2025 has been a year of tectonic shifts in corporate structure. The industry has recognized that the market cannot support half a dozen standalone general entertainment streamers. Completed in August 2025, the merger of Paramount Global and Skydance Media created Paramount Skydance Corporation. This deal brings fresh capital from the Ellison family and tech-forward leadership to a legacy studio. The new entity is aggressively seeking scale, immediately pivoting to bid for Warner Bros. Discovery. The creation of Versant is a strategic masterstroke by Comcast to separate its high-growth assets from its declining ones. By isolating cable networks, MSNBC, CNBC, USA, into a separate entity loaded with debt, Comcast cleans up its own balance sheet, allowing it to trade at a higher multiple focused on growth assets, broadband, Peacock, NBC, studios. Versant is likely a consolidation vehicle. It may eventually merge with other spun-off linear assets to form a linear roll-up company focused on cash flow management rather than growth. WBD is the fulcrum of the industry's next phase. Its potential breakup or sale will define the market structure for the next decade. The studio split strategy, separating the high-value studio and streaming assets from the declining linear networks, is a blueprint that other legacy media companies are watching closely. Conclusion and 2026 outlook. As 2025 concludes, the streaming industry has matured from a chaotic gold rush into a disciplined, consolidated market. The winners are those with diversified business models: Amazon, retail cloud; Apple, hardware, services; and Google, search, video. Netflix stands alone as the only pure-play streamer to achieve escape velocity, largely by evolving into a quasi-network with ads and live events. For the legacy studios, Disney, Comcast, Paramount, and WBD, the path forward involves difficult choices. They must manage the decline of linear TV, their former cash cow, while proving that streaming can generate similar margins. The separation of Versant and the sale of WBD suggests that 2026 will see fewer, larger media entities. Key metrics to watch in 2026. Ad tier adoption. Will it cross 60% for major platforms? The WBD sale. Who buys the studio, and does it trigger an antitrust showdown? Sports rights. Will the NBA deal drive Prime Video to #1 in market share? Gaming integration. Will playing a movie become as common as watching one on Disney+? The battleground has shifted from who has the most subscribers to who has the most sustainable ecosystem. In this new reality, engagement, retention, and ARPU are the only metrics that matter. The great rebundling is here, and the standalone subscription is rapidly becoming a relic of the past.